So good evening, everybody, and welcome to ICIE Talks. Today's topic is It's a Small World, Connecting Excellence, Innovation, and Creativity. With us is Professor Taysir Yamin, General Director of ICIE, the International Center for Innovation in Education, and our special guest, Connie Phelps. Connie is joining us from the US. So is it noon for you, Connie?
I'm in the, can you hear me all right?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, yes. Great. I am in Kansas, so that's Central Time, 7 hours difference.
So 11 a.m. Great. Yes. Okay, so my job today is to introduce Professor Connie Phelps. She is the director of Great Plains Center of Gifted Studies and associate professor at Emporia State. Maybe before we start, can we just ask everybody to mute their mics, please?
You can mute unmute, Nana. Unmute yourself.
Yes, sorry, I was just asking people to make sure that they're muted. I think Miss Eva von Drakova.
Hi.
Yeah,
sorry, I just came to the computer because we just came to this place from Prague.
No problem. Yeah. So just because the background noise.
Hi, everybody.
Yep. Hi.
You can continue, and after this, I will not allow people to unmute, but you can start now until we finish, and then I will mute everybody and not allowed.
Sounds good. So Professor Connie Phelps is the director of the Great Plains Center of Gifted Studies and associate professor at Emporia State University. She serves as a historian for the Kansas Association for Gifted, Talented, and Creative, and she was a past chair of the Professional Development Network of the National Association of Gifted Children Professional Development Network. She is also a past alternate USA delegate for the World Council for Gifted and Talented Children, and her research areas include creativity, individual assessment of giftedness, and language arts curriculum. She collaborates with the Laboratory of Adaptations Work Individuals at the University René Descartes Paris in research on giftedness and creativity. This is her contact information. I have had the pleasure to meet Connie at the ICIE conference in Houston a year and a half ago, and we also spent some time in Rijeka, Croatia, and I'm sure you will hear about it. So feel free to contact Connie with any questions that you might have. She is very approachable.
Okay, is that my cue, Nana? And it's good to see everyone. So I'm going to check one last time before I launch into the PowerPoints, which, Nana, am I supposed to do the PowerPoints myself?
Yes,
or, okay.
By yourself.
Okay, I will have to, I'm having a little bit of trouble. I wasn't sure if you were doing them, and I'm having a little bit of trouble with my PowerPoint. So, Nana, can you do the PowerPoint and I can just tell you next? Can you do that?
If you share the screen.
Okay, Taysir, did you see that I emailed the PowerPoint to you this morning?
You emailed me the PDF file. I can run it if you like.
Okay, you can?
Yes.
Okay, would you please do that? And then Nana, could you do the, for some reason, my computer's been very slow and I'm afraid that will delay the lecture if I try to use my PowerPoint here. So that's what I was trying to fix before we got started. The internet's just very, very slow today. It's windy. In Kansas, you may know the story of the Wizard of Oz. We have a lot of wind at times, and today is one of those days. So that's fantastic. Okay. I would gladly do it. I'm just a little bit afraid that it'll crash the system here. Okay, can you make it full screen, Tazir? Can you make it in the present mode?
This is what I can do.
Make it just a little bit bigger.
So, you know, with the...
Let me see if I can, while I'm getting started, let me see if I can email you a PowerPoint, an actual PowerPoint.
Yeah, we will be better.
Yeah, okay.
Because with PowerPoint will be easy to run.
Yes, I agree. Give me, I'll go ahead and stop the video for just a minute. I'll send that to you, okay?
Maybe while we wait, I can see there's people coming from everywhere. I recognize quite a few familiar faces. Maybe in the chat, people just want to let us know where they're from, the country or the city.
Connie, did you send it by email? Connie, do you hear me? You are unmute.
I am from Taiwan in Israel.
Hello, nice to meet you. Welcome.
My name is Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. I'm Nana.
How are you?
I am very well, thank you. And you?
Connie, did you send me the...
I am very well.
Tazir, I'm going to have to put it in the Google Drive. So are you able to take it out of the Google Drive?
It takes long time, longer.
Yes?
You
Okay.
just share the screen because it will not take that much from the screen, you know. Try to share screen. I think it will not take that much load.
Okay. The problem is that the PowerPoint kept crashing. So if you'll let me put it in, can you grab it from the Google Drive if I share it with you?
I will try, yes.
Okay.
I think it will help if you close from the video.
From?
All the people, they close from the video, so you not can see them.
No, I don't think that's the problem.
It is in the other
Okay.
side, you know.
I think it maybe could help the system.
I am so sorry.
Okay.
It will take just one moment.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to send it to Nana and to Tazir.
All right. Thank you.
And I am apologetic for this, but I'd like to know, where is everyone from while we're waiting?
We have nearly from all around the world.
Wow, every continent?
In the chat, we have Palestine, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Greece, Slovenia, Croatia, Egypt.
It's nice to meet you all.
Wonderful.
There's India.
And Denmark.
Denmark,
Denmark.
Croatia, Slovenia,
Czech Republic,
Saudi Arabia,
Saudi Arabia, Israel, Jordan,
UAE,
yes, United Arab Emirates.
Netherlands.
It's still, I will try to run it, Tazir, sharing my screen. I will try to do
Yeah,
that.
please,
Because it's, yeah, and I'm so sorry. We'll still finish on time, I assure you, but I think I have a lot of photos in the PowerPoint. So,
is it working for you, Connie, now? Yes. رجاء من الكل انه يسكر المايك وما يفتح المايك الا لما بده يسأل، لانه بحاول اعمل هون انميوت لكن برجع الشخص بيفتح المايك، لكن راح اعمل انميوت وبس كوني ونانا يعني بيعملوا ask to unmute.
okay, Tazir, will you please unmute me?
Yes,
You are.
you are.
Okay, great. Okay, I think we're rolling now.
Yes.
Finally. Okay. So the song "It's a Small World" debuted in 1964 at the New York World's Fair. It was written to celebrate children at the UNICEF organization. And when the World's Fair opened, UNICEF asked Walt Disney to not copyright the song. So this is the only Walt Disney song that is not copyrighted. It's one of the most played songs in the world. And when UNICEF made that request, they wanted to make it available for all children everywhere forever. So when you consider how much it is played, It's a Small World is both a ride or an attraction at Disney World and most of the Disney theme parks around the world in Paris and Tokyo and other places. And it's played maybe 12,000 times a day. It runs continuously. So the song was written as a tribute to children. And I hope that this lecture today will accomplish a similar, will pay tribute to the importance of children, paying attention to their needs, and some of the things I've learned as we're connecting excellence, innovation, and creativity. So thank you very much for your patience as we're getting started here. I'm gonna make sure that the first slide actually changes. Hopefully it will. It did. Yay, we're on a roll. Okay. I had extensive sabbatical travel in 2012 and 2019 as I researched giftedness. I'm going to move my camera just a little bit here. I'm sorry about that. And creativity studies in 9 European countries. This had the purpose of okay, looks like there's still people trying to get in or something. Expanding my professional network, establishing collaborative research teams, and enhancing teaching and learning experiences with high potential children and adolescents. These on-site visits, sorry about that, I'm getting used to doing this type of presentation. Sorry. Provides, I had visits to the research universities, PK-12 schools, creativity centers, and professional conferences that provided insight on our common challenges. We spotlighted national accomplishments and enhanced shared resources. I'm very thankful to everyone who participated. That would be Tazir, Nana, and many others, I'm sure, who may be on this call, in these small world experiences where we see just how innovation, excellence, and creativity are demonstrated in both real world and virtual experiences. I'm very grateful for Tazir for the coordination that as executive director of ICIE helped me as I arranged my 2019 sabbatical, and for people like Nana, who were so hospitable as I traveled around Europe. Okay, oh, here we go. So it's a small world. Here's a little bit more about the song. As we think about talent, creativity, and innovation, this was a songwriting, two brothers who wrote songs for Walt Disney. Some of the older movies, like you may know about Mary Poppins, maybe you've heard the what's sometimes known as the world's longest word, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I grew up learning to say that. It was a fun thing to say as a kid. And it was this, these two brothers, Robert B. Sherman and Richard B. Sherman, who wrote the song and many other Disney songs. As I said, It's a Small World is both attraction that you can ride. So that's this here at Fantasyland, in Disneyland in California, Tokyo, Paris, and I believe a couple other, maybe, I think Shanghai is the only one that doesn't do it. So let's just take a look as we reflect on the words written many years ago. It's a world of laughter and a world of tears, a world of hopes and a world of fears. There's so much that we share that it's time that we're aware. It's a small world after all. And I think these past months, not only during my sabbatical in 2019, I was gone 3 months, we have found out just how small the world really is. Next is my tribute to ICIE. I like to play with words sometimes. So I wrote my own version, If It's a Small World. It's a world of colleagues, benevolent, who connect networks known for excellence, innovate and create to reflect and update in our world of ICIE. So all of you who are part of that, thank you. It's a wonderful organization. I'm proud to be part of it. I'm proud to be colleagues with you. All right, originally, I created a summary of my 2019 sabbatical as part of an endowed professor lecture. I called that lecture Around the World in 90 Days. Well, in 2019, you could literally travel around the world. Well, it's not so possible right now, today, but I think about how Google Maps told me This year for 2020, in reflection, I traveled about 500 miles. Whereas in 2019, I literally traveled enough miles to go around the world, even though I was traveling from the United States to Europe and so on. So how the world does change. The Around the World in 90 Days, of course, is a tribute to a Jules Verne story. And I was fortunate that I had very few mishaps. And I think a lot of that was due to the careful planning and the wonderful colleagues that I worked with as I traveled by myself. The endowed professorship, I would like to acknowledge Dr. Johnny King, who was recognized by the Pickerel Foundation for his support of students. And I was fortunate to receive the inaugural award as this endowed professor. And I couldn't be more pleased that the endowed professorship also includes some of the very attributes that we consider valuable in ICIE, such as progression, progressiveness, innovation, visionary, impactful, and relationship building. All of those I value as I work with my students and with my colleagues. And I'm so happy to have received that award, which made it a little easier for me to travel. Okay, so again, I'm coordinating about 3 screens here as I go. So let's see how I do with this. All right. Oh, here's a map. This is actually literally the Google map of the timeline as I traveled around the world. So I left the United States, I flew into Germany, and you'll see the rest of the story as I go along. But this was 24,000 miles, almost 25,000. I visited 9 countries. They represented 8 languages. There were 4 currencies, 1 time zone. I traveled with 1 suitcase and 1 backpack. I was pretty proud of myself with those last 2 accomplishments. And I can't tell you, the less you take on any kind of travel, the better off you are. So let's see. All right, I had a little warm up to this 3-month of sabbatical travel throughout Europe. I really feel that it began in Houston with the ICIE conference and at the World Conference in Nashville. So these 2 conferences in July of 2019, the first one, ICIE, was the first time that we have hosted something in the United States. And it was hosted at the historically Black college and university, Prairie View A&M near Houston. The World Conference was hosted at Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee. I was really thrilled to reconnect with colleagues such as Tazir, and I met Nana, other Joe Renzulli, Joyce Miller, and whom I've known for decades, as well as meeting new colleagues. So some of those are represented here. One of my Javits Fraser scholars, I co-presented with her in Nashville, and I was happy to have both students, colleagues, and mentors to enrich this warm-up kind of trip. All right, so travel light. This became my mantra throughout my any kind of travel that I do anymore. I just selected the most essential toiletries, technology for a shoulder season between summer and fall, so that I knew that I wouldn't need a lot of different kinds of clothing. I had jet and economy plane, high-speed and regional train, bus and rental cars with different baggage allowances. And I used that medium suitcase and backpack to remain in those limits. As a visiting professor, I enjoyed international cuisine with colleagues explored local sites with host families, and rented a car for personal sightseeing, of which was a minimum, actually. Nana might recognize this sign over here in the far right. The sign there is actually, the Razorback is the mascot of the University of Arkansas, which is where I received my doctorate. But this is actually a common sight in Croatia. So you just never know what you're going to see along the way. And Nana, I can't tell you how much my American colleagues enjoy seeing that sign. They have never seen a sign like that before, unless it is at a football game with the Razorback mascot. So supported by a network of wonderful colleagues in all these locations, I felt secure and safe while traveling fearlessly. All right, so I first traveled to Germany, and which is a land of innovation and invention. And of course, ICIE is located there, headquartered in Ulm. And my first stop was to present at the International Mathematical Creativity and Giftedness Conference at the University of Hamburg, and to consult with the Gifted Parent Organization in Oldenburg. Okay, I think I've got the hang of the clicking now. In Hamburg, I checked into my Airbnb apartment, took the Elbe River tour, which was called On the Tracks of Sailors and Dockers. German engineering skill shined with the 1911 Old Elbe tunnel that's 426 meters long and 24 meters below the Elbe River, connecting the docks and the shipyards. So this is that picture right there. I'm getting a lot of messages here from the waiting room, so I'm going to try to close those. Okay. Moreover, the 2017 Elbe Philharmonie represents the most expensive concert hall constructed in the world at $866 million. So if you look at the Elbe River, originally, this is a warehouse, and they built the Philharmonie concert hall on top of a warehouse. So it's quite picturesque in Hamburg. Of course, the Germans are very, very proud of that. And it is an amazing feat of architecture. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to take in a concert while I was there, but I would like to do that someday. The ship, as you see, or the building actually represents a ship sail, which is reminiscent of Hamburg's shipping industry. I visited the rope-making Reeperbahn red light district, where rock and roll groups like the Beatles honed their talent in the 1960s. And you can see that over here. The Beatles went from England to Germany, and all the rest is history from there. The red light district is maybe not the best area to go into, but it is something that most tourists, it's kind of a must-see sort of place. All right, so I feel that small, specialized international conferences offer some of our very best experiences. And the 2019 Mathematical Creativity and Giftedness Conference more than met my expectations. Well represented from all continents, the conference presenters shared research based in their respective countries. For example, I learned how the shadow of the Third Reich blocked research on cognitive giftedness until the 1980s in order to avoid elitism in German society. Instead, funding supported low-achieving students to overcome social inequities. You know, ICIE has small conferences as well very often. And I felt, even though this is the first time that I had worked with this group, I felt very welcomed. I knew Marianne Nolte from World Conferences from decades ago, and the family over to the right, they represent a lot of consultation with parents. they have phone consultation. Petra organizes a first Friday for regular attenders of the Lower Saxony Gifted Parent Organization in Northwest Germany. So this is her family over here, and they graciously let me attend one of their meetings on Sunday morning, where children of these families in the area have grown up together. They met in a recreation center, and every Sunday, or as often as they can, at least monthly, they like to meet together. So literally, the kids have grown up together, and that's formed a really wonderful bond for those children, a support group for them. Okay, here we go. So day 1 through 5 was Germany, and on day 6 through 9, I went to Denmark. So I traveled very inexpensively, only $25, which is just over, Connie,
yeah.
Okay, I see that. I'm getting lots of messages from all over. So I thank you. I'll start again with day 6 through 9. I traveled by bus to Denmark, to Copenhagen. And I was able to take the Flixbus for $25, which would be just over 20 euros. Okay, so I'll try not to mute myself accidentally here. Still admitting people as I go, Tazier. We have a lot of people coming in yet. Okay, so I went to Copenhagen, where I met with Tina and Oli. Many of you know these people. They were the organizers of the 2015 World Conference in Odense. They took me to dinner in the trendy Nyhavn waterfront area, where we discussed the complexities of identifying gifted children through private psychologists like Oli in a country that does not have school services for gifted. This paucity, or this lack of private schools for gifted children and future directions for talent development created some challenges. And I was happy to meet with some of these people working to increase those opportunities. I enjoyed a sense of Danish coziness known as hygge with colleagues, and even learned to knit wrist warmers for bicyclists as a hygge experience. So in Copenhagen, I was able to consult because what I do is I teach teachers how to be gifted facilitators. I've done that for 17 years. And so I know a few things about how to run programs in schools. And I was happy to not only consult, but enjoy really delicious food in Copenhagen. Okay, so that was, you'll see in these slides that the first slide, there's actually a little bit of a pattern. The first slide is usually going to show you cultural innovations and excellence and creativity. And the second slide is going to represent more professional connections in those areas. All right, so one of my colleagues from Kansas, originally from Copenhagen, arranged these visits for me. And I was really happy to revisit Bo Anderson and his family. This is the group in the middle here. Again, I had lunch at a Danish museum to consult about gifted services in schools. There were 2 new schools starting. One of them did start last year, and another one was slated to start this year. So the Skolen, which is school, by Bifrost, I think is how they say it, in Roskilde, which is right next to, very near Copenhagen. That started last year with a long-time gifted facilitator. And the Leonardo Skolen was scheduled to start here. So I was happy to spend time with those groups and tour their school facilities that they hope to grow. Okay, we'll go ahead here. So from days 10 through 40, I spent a month in France, which is where I have spent most of my time in Europe studying gifted.
So you have to Louva here also.
Sorry?
You have to Louva here.
Yes, yes. And that's actually, I think, where I met, no, it's not quite true. I met you in England.
The best man in France.
Well, he's coming. It's on the way. He's certainly included. Okay, over the years, I visited France, primarily Paris, for the equivalent of about 6 months. I speak French reasonably well, and I rented an apartment just north of Paris for a month. If you remember the 1924 World Olympics in France and the Olympic Games, there was a movie, a very famous movie made about that. That's where I stayed, in Colombes, and they're going to be hosting Olympics there again soon. So when you have longer rentals, like a month is a really good idea anytime you stay for an extended period of time, because the price is always going to go down. And if you can stay outside the immediate metropolitan area, the price is usually better too. It worked really well for me because I took this suburban train to meet colleagues at cafes in Paris. That's what you do. You go to cafes. And yes, Tizir, I met with Todd at a cafe as well. So I arrived just before la rentrée, which is the start of the school year. So I alternated between work and short excursions from the base of my Paris location. And well, I guess I need to advance here. 2 highlights. You can see just this is the cultural side of my 30-day stay in France. And there were 2 highlights that I would like to feature here. You can recognize a lot of these photos, I'm sure. But one of them is the Beaujon Hospital right here. This is where my father was stationed during World War II. So I grew up speaking very, very basic French, like counting to 10. So you might say I've been speaking French a really long time, but both my father served in France, in Paris, during World War II, and my grandfather also served in France, in the Ardennes, during World War I. So I'm very proud that in the small world that we have, that we are allies, that we work together, that we pursue common goals and so on. Okay, the other cultural piece that I'd like to highlight to you is something I was new to me, and that's called Black Paris. So one of my first nights, I visited a friend who said, "Hey, I'm going to a jazz concert on Rue de Rivoli." And if you know anything about Paris, you know Rue de Rivoli is a main street. It's just north of the Louvre. And during the Tour de France, they go down the Rue de Rivoli to the Arc de Triomphe and back on that circuit. So we were in the Swedish Circle building that overlooked the Rue de Rivoli for a jazz concert with an American jazz singer. So I learned about Black Paris and their cultural legacy in music, literature, architecture, and military leadership throughout Parisian history. If you look over here, if we were together at a conference, I would ask you, who do you think that is? And well, if you know about Alexandre Dumas and the Three Musketeers, this is D'Artagnan. And he's on the backside of the writer, the statue of Alexandre Dumas, the writer. And the joke about D'Artagnan being on the backside is that he's got his back. He's got Alexandre Dumas' back. And the family of the Dumas was Black. And they call him Alexander Le Père, the father, was a military leader. Alexander Dumas, the novelist. And then the son of Alexander Dumas was also a playwright. So a lot of talent. And I actually took an all-day tour of Black Paris, which is Taizir. It's over on the kind of the northwest side, not too far north. An all-day tour of studying Black Paris, because those people served very well in the war, and they brought their talents with them. But when they went back to America after the war, they weren't so appreciated. So they took those talents in music and went back to Paris. And the rest is history. We have jazz in Paris and so much more. Okay. So I'm admitting people still, Tazier, as we go. So I'm clicking away with slides and with admitting people. Now, you might recognize someone here, okay? Here we are on the professional side of my Parisian stay. And I've been fortunate, thanks to Tazier's help along the way. My university, I learned about the work in gifted education at the University of Paris. It has since merged. It was formerly known as Paris Descartes, and it has since merged with the University of Paris. So it actually has a new name. And they hadn't quite started their semester yet, but that did not keep us meeting in cafes. So I was able to meet with Marianne, as well as Todd, and a guest lecturer from South America. So never a dull moment when you're in Paris, whether you're working professionally or enjoying some of the sites. And if you aren't familiar with Todd Lubart in his work in creativity, take a look. He does cutting edge research. He's and this is a lifelong passion of his in creativity. So I feel honored to have an agreement between my university and the University of Paris. All right, so while I was in Paris, I used it as kind of a jumping off point for Belgium and Luxembourg. So days 23 through 25, Brussels is only 2 hours away from Paris by high-speed train. And I arrived at the administrative center in Brussels at the European Union to meet with the Dean of the Catholic University of Louvain. All right, so the fun stuff first. Brussels, of course, has quite a history of culinary excellence and political, I guess I should say power. I think I should say power. I don't know if that's the right word. But I only had 2 nights in Brussels, so I walked to the city center where I sampled chocolate, ate waffles, learned about the legendary mannequin piss, which is this guy right here. Okay, constructed in 1619, the little guy sports a luxurious wardrobe of more than 900 outfits, commemorating prestigious visitors at the EU and other world events. I viewed the European Union buildings and other city sites from the top of a double-decker bus. Okay. All right. So on the serious side, I took the local train from Brussels to Louvain, which is known, it's about an hour south of Brussels. This was built intentionally as a modern city. So the entire University Catholique of Louvain resides on former farmland. I discussed research on giftedness, talent development, and creativity with Dr. Jacques Gregoire, who studies cognitive, motivational, and emotional characteristics of youth with high potential, as well as the psychometric properties assessment, and mathematical learning disorders. The widow of the comic strip creator of Tintin, over here, donated all the Tintin drawings to the Hergé Museum on campus. So I was able to take the train, which you can see Jacques is pointing to the map. You take it down there, and the city is literally built around the train tracks. So you can get off the train, you're right there in the plaza at the campus, and it's very, very convenient. Everything is there, all the university buildings. I found this very innovative, and it was a delight to meet with Jacques, who is, again, if you don't know some of these people, please put them on your radar. All right, so don't know whether to admit people or click. Nana, are you also able to admit? Because I'm admitting.
Connie, the whole time that you're talking, there's people coming all the time, and Taysir and I are handling it, so you don't have to worry at all about this.
Okay.
Just keep on going.
Okay.
We are loving your talk.
Well, thank you so much. You're very kind. On day 26, you'll notice that some of these countries have more than one language. I was only able to spend one full day, one night, one full day in Luxembourg. And the people of Luxembourg actually do speak 3 languages. So Luxembourg has about 500,000 residents. It's the second richest country in Europe, offers the highest minimum wage, and remains one of the safest countries with the motto, "We want to remain what we are." Well, who can blame them for that? And what a joy, what a beautiful country. It's a beautifully green place, and I would love to spend more time there. I can see why they would like to remain what they are. Okay, so again, thanks to connections through ICIE, I was able to visit the University of Luxembourg, Belleville, and the Ministry of Education Center. So a colleague that we know from through ICIE arranged this meeting with the Ministry of Education. This is amazing. This is one of the most remarkable advances that that I found on my trip, because this is Nicole Wagner. She's a former teacher who once told her boss at the ministry, "I want to start a school for gifted." He said, "Okay, do it." So she did. She works, as it says, at the Ministry of Education, and she established a groundbreaking state-sponsored educational program for HP, or HP, high potential children. That's the term in at least French-speaking countries. HP, or high potential, is commonly used in Europe. Not so much in America. Not so sure about some of the other countries, but it does avoid some of the stigma that gifted, or some of the misunderstanding that gifted sometimes carries. So they created, Nicole and her assistant, this is her assistant over here, and this was my hostess, the Center for High Potential Children and Young People. We spoke alternately in French and English, perhaps anticipated in a polyglot country that speaks 3 national languages, about the challenges and advances of the new program. I asked her, it was the 2nd year of the program when I met her, and I asked her, okay, how many of your teachers that you hired last year came back? And I believe the answer was either none or 1. So that's pretty sad. So it's a hard work, you know, teacher training is so important in these countries. And, but I'm sure Nicole is still going strong with that work, and I look forward to having an update from her soon. All right, so over here on the left, Established in 2003, the the research-based University of Luxembourg, Belval, represents a movement away from a steel-producing country to a financial center and one of the 4 European Union capitals. A repurposed blast furnace, so this is where they made steel. This is in almost on the French Luxembourg border right here at Belval. It features what they call the Cité des Sciences, or the City of Science, with more than a dozen buildings at 960 million euros in its first phase. So rather than tear it all down, they repurposed it for a branch or satellite campus for the University of Luxembourg. So if you visit Luxembourg, you can climb an inactive blast furnace pending weather conditions. All right, days 40 through 54. By now, I had taken my little side trips to Brussels and to Luxembourg City, and I prepared to leave Paris for the rest of my trip. So days 40 through 54, essentially, I was in Switzerland. And Switzerland actually has 4 national languages. All right, so I took the high-speed train from Paris to Geneva with speaking engagements arranged at Webster University. That's just outside Geneva. It's a non-EU landlocked country that speaks French, German, Italian, and Romanish. And they enjoy a high standard of living. It's an expensive city on the shores of Lake Geneva between the Jura and the Alp Mountains. But Geneva does offer beautiful location for international headquarters like the Red Cross and the European capital of the United Nations. So the fun part, I visited the home of Voltaire. Actually, he was exiled from France, and strangely enough, this is still France. It's just over the border of Switzerland. So the city is actually named after him. So the 18th century writer and philosopher Voltaire spent the last 20 years of his life on the French border town, Ferney-Voltaire. And also the comic filmmaker Charlie Chaplin, which is represented in this area over here. It's not his home. He was also somewhat exiled thanks to various investigations going on, settled in the Swiss Riviera overlooking Lake Geneva. Here, Mont Blanc rises 408 meters as the highest peak in the Alps. Sorry. Okay, we'll try to get unmuted again. Am I unmuted now? Yes,
yes,
good.
We can
okay,
hear you.
So sorry, I'm not sure how I'm doing that. So actually, I took this view from Webster University. Imagine working at a university where you walk out of your office and there's the view of Lake Geneva and Mont Blanc. So quite beautiful, I think we would all agree. Faculty at Webster University, Geneva enjoy Mont Blanc from their building, as I just said. My host, Dr. Vlad Glavanow, chairs the psychology department and directs research at the Webster Center for Creativity and Innovation. This center has applications for business, education, art, design, technology, and society. My podcast and public lecture represented the city's first foray into giftedness. My limited wardrobe, as you can see across the photos, mostly black, gave me a good European look, but it was a lot easier for packing and traveling and fitting in with formal occasions as well as informal occasions. And I was very grateful for the hospitality that I enjoyed with Vlad at Webster University. So if you look over at the right, And I think Eve-Marie might be on the call tonight, the webinar tonight. She emailed me today and I invited her to join us, and I hope she's able to do so. This is a pre-K-12 school. Eve-Marie is a graduate of Paris Descartes University, one of Todd Lubart's former students, and she started a school for gifted between Lausanne and Geneva. So I spent a number of days teaching, observing, visiting, and just enjoying Germaine de Stael private school for high ability learners. I was so happy to reconnect with the founder, Eve-Marie. The school uses self-paced instruction and an ongoing assessment of student intellectual and emotional needs, both so important with gifted. All right. While I was in Switzerland, I traveled to France, back to France, but to the French Alps in what's known as the Savoie department. So I stayed although I stayed in the border town of Voltaire for nearly 2 weeks, I took the bus to the French department of the Savoie, and the Savoie historically was linked with Italy. So it has another one of those kind of in-between histories between two countries. This would be my third visit to Chambéry. And as you might imagine, the French Alps offer world-class skiing and cuisine. I stayed with Veronique and her family. Their children had grown up a lot since I first met them in 2012. During the weekend, we drove through the mountains to view Lake Bourget, the deepest lake entirely in France, with 85 meters and a maximum depth of 145 meters, and the Haute-Combe Abbey, which is the burial place of the Savoy kings during the 13th and the 14th century. So that is here. And this building, it's an abbey, but it houses Italian royalty. And this is the city of Chambéry, where the streets, in the medieval part of it, quite an old part of the city. So when I resumed after a few outings like that, Veronique is a school doctor. They call them médecins scolaires. So in France, they have school doctors. In the United States, we have school nurses. But very often school doctors become administrators as well. And Veronique, this is her here, she used her administrative influence to encourage gifted services in French public schools. In 2019, France mandated education for preschool children, and we toured a bilingual French-German preschool with engaging activities that teachers created themselves. So if you look in the background here, you will see this is the school, and they actually teach these preschoolers German as well as French. Well, of course, they are French. They track student progress and look for signs of giftedness at early ages. I felt encouraged to revisit the Jules Ferry Middle School after 7 years, and I still found Laurent Turc still offering differentiated services for gifted, for high ability students. There is a book that it's in the reference section that talks about their work here. And they have basically used the work of Joe Renzulli with curriculum compacting to deliver those services, and they still do those. And then Jules Ferry is a middle school. Although it says collège, in French, collège means middle school, not college. All right, so this should look familiar to Nana, maybe. After I stayed in Switzerland, I took a low-cost EasyJet flight for very little money, you know, like maybe 50 euros to Dubrovnik, where I attended the first thematic conference, ECHA conference on creativity. So once again, I met up with Todd Lubart and Vlad there. Let's have a look. It was my first trip to Croatia. And I am so grateful, Nana, for all of your help. I have to say, I learned a whole lot about Croatia while I was there. And I'd love to come back. All right. So known for its antiquity, Croatia provides a favorite film location for Star Wars, Robin Hood, and most recently, Game of Thrones. Multitudes of tourists flock to Dubrovnik as well as Split to see film locations firsthand. Though diligent with conference sessions, the Adriatic Sea and the Old City beckon conference attendees during breaks and evenings. And I assure you, we went together to visit those sites. And we, you know, what is work and what is play? You know, I think in our field, in the organization of ICIE, a lot of enjoyment comes from just being together, whether we were bobbing around in the Adriatic Sea, climbing the walls of the old city, or sitting in conference sessions. It's all good. With unseasonably warm weather, the native Croatians and internationals swam in the sea weather at 22 degrees Celsius in October. So these are World Heritage sites here. One of them, of course, we'll see a little bit later in Rijeka. So this would represent Dubrovnik, and then going north from there to Split, where Diocletian's Palace. I was able to walk through that. It just, for an American with such young history, these are really amazing places to see. All right, Todd and Marav from Paris, Vlad from Geneva, Darko and Zorana from Croatia, and Hwang Lee from Korea all attended the first thematic European conference for ECHA. Themed with creativity, it seemed natural that the collaborative research would emerge from this group, and we did enjoy spirited camaraderie throughout the conference. And this is Vlad here. This is Zorana from Split, who works at Yale in a creativity center, and then myself. On the work side, going north, I actually drove. By the way, Nan, I don't think I'd ever do that again. I drove from Dubrovnik in a rental car all the way to Rijeka. And I stopped in Split for 2 nights, which was amazing, absolutely amazing. But I think I'd find another way to do this, Nana. So I was advised against train travel, which is why I did a rental car, and I was uncertain about bus schedules. So I drove all along the Adriatic Sea to Rijeka, and I stopped overnight in Split. I discovered different cultural values in Eastern Europe, like take your time, and a more relaxed way of doing things. Nana greeted me in Rijeka, and she drove me to various schools that represented the best of gifted-like practices. I noticed elementary schools in Rijeka displayed colorful, bright walls and comfortable furnishings. Although unfunded, both primary and secondary leadership found innovative means to provide enrichment for high-ability learners, such as weekend-long camps, short courses at a recreation center, and a question of the week for the high level of college-bound students known as the gymnasium. Darko arranged a visit, and this is Darko here, at the teacher education department with the vice dean and faculty teaching gifted education coursework at the University of Rijeka. And that would be with Jana. We discussed how to grow the gifted program to extend their outreach. How much more time do I have, Tizir? I can kind of speed up if you need me to, or shall I just keep going?
You can have around 10 minutes more.
Okay, I think that'll be about right.
Yeah.
All righty. From days 64 through 66, I spent time in Slovenia. So after the whirlwind tour, literally whirlwind, thank you, Anna, or Nana, for driving me around, I drove to my next destination in Porto Roche, also on the Adriatic Sea near Italy, to the Talent Education Conference. Here I experienced two very different forms of welcome. Equipped with only a Wi-Fi device and no GPS, I inadvertently, sorry, got ahead of myself. I inadvertently got on a secondary road. It's only open to EU members. The border guards took great exception to my trespassing, and they required me to turn back, not far from although I wasn't far from my destination. I was concerned about no GPS, low fuel, and the approach of dark and evening, as I thought about Arya from the Game of Thrones and her fencing master. And what do we say to the god of death? Not today. As you see, this attitude stood me well, and I arrived safely in Porto Roche. However, I soon discovered I arrived a day early. My reserved room was not available. Tired and fearing the worst, I felt immensely grateful when the hotel provided me with a luxury suite with 2 balconies. This pampering soon restored my sense of traveling fearlessly. At the Talent Education Conference, many gifted education conferences attract psychologists. However, the Talent Education Conference features PK-12 teachers, higher ed professors, primarily. I reconnected here with Tizir and with Petra and Trevor from the United States with his lovely wife, Jenny. The co-conference chair, Marushka, capably organized every detail of the event, and we ate very well. I enjoyed a school visit where I enjoyed the colorful decor and welcoming ambiance. My colleague, Martina, whom I met in Nashville, also attended the conference. She offered me hospitality in her lovely home in North Italy. We drove there together after the conference. The artwork on the title page of this presentation was drawn by children at the school in Porto Roche. Day 67 through 85, almost 3 weeks, I spent in Italy, North Italy. Martina, however, kept me very busy teaching and speaking in a country known for its scholars, artists, and polymaths. European schools typically holiday during religious days, so my time with Martina and her family included side trips to Florence and Venice. Her husband is a cook, so we ate well at home and enjoyed a number of outside meals as well. As a primary teacher, consultant in gifted education, this is Martina right here. Martina included me in her presentations throughout North Italy, and you can see all of those in the reference section. She translated everything, as most Italians, or many of them at least, don't speak English. Well received through these presentations, I taught elementary children in grades 3 through 5 about Kansas and one of its iconic features, cowboys. I designed multidisciplinary enrichment lessons that included music, history, geography, and cuisine. The students responded very well to these lessons. Throughout my stay, Martina and I presented virtually at the International Congress on Gifted and Talented in Turkey, and we also guest lectured via Zoom for Dr. Joyce Miller's doctoral class at Texas A&M on gifted education in Italy about my observations from sabbatical. So these are some of the professional organizations. There is not mandated gifted services, much like most of Europe in Italy. So Martina is taking it herself along with her colleagues. In days 86 through 90, I ended my visit in Munich, Germany. All good things must end, and I transitioned in Munich to a return home kind of mode. I had a little free time here. So with 4 nights in Munich, I visited the Platz that hosts the famous Christmas market. I enjoyed a concert in the residence. I toured Dachau and visited Neuschwanstein Castle that inspired Walt Disney to create the Sleeping Beauty Castle at Disneyland. The outcomes, well, I can't quite get this to stay where I want to see it here. The outcomes of my prolonged visit, seeing the academic field through the eyes of internationals really changed my life, especially in Italy and Croatia, places I'd never been. I lost 2 family members during the sabbatical, yet I felt supported by caring colleagues in all of my locations. I broadened my network with teachers and researchers. I submitted 2 manuscripts with more in progress, and I formed 2 collaborative international research groups. The next few pages are just going to show you how productive the partnership of this work that ICIE helped me establish. So you can see that there was quite a bit accomplished during this time. And the work really goes on. Tizir, I think I have enough for the rest of my life to just keep studying, researching, and collaborating. So these are some of the publications and presentations in all of these places listed here. These are the teaching sessions that I did in Italy and other places. Some of the consultation I did in the 9 countries. The concert in Dubrovnik, which of course had to feature an encore from the Game of Thrones theme. The wonderful, wonderful concert in Munich in a beautiful setting in the Hercules room at the residence in Munich. And these are some of the other publications that I referred to throughout this lecture. I'm going to end with another Disney song. This one is copyrighted, and it is written by a different songwriting team, whereas our It's a Small World brother team did earlier Disney films, or well, they wrote songs for a lot of Disney films. Another duo, Tim Rice and Alan Menken, have done more recent ones. And I thought these words might be a little bit appropriate to us in this time that we're in together in our small world. So here it is, A Whole New World. It's Aladdin singing to Jasmine in the Disney film Aladdin that maybe a lot of you are familiar with. That's where we'll be. That's where we'll be. They re-echo back and forth to each other. A thrilling chase, a wondrous place for you and me. And, you know, regardless of the challenges that we share, that we face in this small world that we're in, it is a wondrous place. And a lot of that is because of you, of us together. So thank you, Tazir and Nana, for this opportunity.
Thank you, Connie. And first of all, I would like to thank you for this contribution. We are very pleased to have you today. And for the audience of this talk, I would like just to say that here we have 4 members of the ICIE, including or amongst them Tut Loubart from France and from Université de Paris, and also Nana and Sandra. So we will have a series of talks. We started this talk with Connie Phelps from the US. Next talk will be from Christine Boykohet from Canada. And she is going to talk about the new approaches in teaching for creativity and innovation. And this will be at the same time like this one, starts at 17. German time. So you have to make sure that you convert time and you can see how, what is the time at your location. Before I open the platform for the questions and my friend and colleague Nana will coordinate the questions, but I would like to give a brief summary for this talk and the rationale behind this talk. Connie Phelps gave us an example. How could we build the scholars community and the learning community? And we have the scholars community and learning community. And based on that, we try to keep the network very active in different parts of the world. And in this network, we have the people who enjoy the debate environment, because we normally avoid what we call the conflict environment. We appreciate and acknowledge and work in the debate environment. Connie shed light on a number of projects, but as you see, there are many similarities between these projects. For example, some schools, they offer enrichment activities. Some of them, they teach for thinking. Some of them, they have different types of enrichment activities. Some of them involved in measuring potential creativity. For example, using the battery developed by Todd and his team. We call it Epoch, and so on. So we have different activities running in different parts of the world. And this is the message delivered by Connie Phelps, that we have diversity, and we know how to deal with diversity. We know how to communicate and collaborate in different projects and different initiatives here and there. And I hope this platform will work for you as a platform where you can communicate, where you can collaborate and doing things together. So thank you so much, Connie, for this contribution. We highly appreciate it, and we are so proud of you. Thank you. Now,
it's my pleasure.
I give the platform for Nana to coordinate the questions, and I will follow your questions in the chat room. And anybody would like to talk, he can just raise, or she can raise the hand, and then we take your questions.
Since we're a big group, if people would like, you can also put it in the chat. Sometimes it's not that comfortable to
yes,
to talk. But I see a hand, and Nidal, you have your hand up, so you can go ahead if you have a question.
Unmute.
Unmute.
Nidal, you need to unmute your mic.
Okay. Hello, nice to see you again, Connie.
You too.
I was happy to see my photo among the people you met at the World Council for Gifted and Talented Children in Nashville.
Yes.
1 year back. My question, in all the settings you've seen across Europe for the gifted children, I noticed that they were mostly, as I could tell, that they were exclusive setting for the gifted, and maybe, I guess, rarely they were offered the services in inclusive regular schools. So is my assumption correct, and what do you think about it?
Well, I'm not sure entirely, Nidal, if I understand your assumption. I will say that
I mean, they offered the services for their giftedness in exclusive centers or schools only for high potential students, not in the regular schools. So this was my question.
Yes, I think most of my experiences in France, and I think that France, as in most of these countries, there are no services in public schools unless they have a disability. So generally speaking, I know this is true in France, Italy, and some of you could address it differently in some of the other countries. If there is a learning disability or some other kind of difficulty, then children who are perceived as gifted may also have services through that type of benefit. Aside from that type of benefit, there really aren't services. In fact, many countries, such as Italy, don't see gifted. They don't necessarily know how to recognize a gifted student. So they're not providing services primarily because they don't necessarily either believe there is such a thing, or they don't know how to recognize them, or they don't want to recognize them. So the reasons for not providing services vary. But so with that said, yes, I think your observation is correct. It's either going to be maybe Catholic schools. France has kind of an in-between type of school between a public school and a private school that might exist. And I visited a number of those. Now, the school in Chambéry is really an exception, because that is one school that I can point to, as were the schools in Luxembourg, where it is a state, a national initiative. That's different. Nicole and her team are actually integrating gifted education into the Luxembourg schools. In Chambéry, mostly because of the leadership of Veronique and her team, they actually deliver services in the public school in Jules Ferry. And I'm happy to say they are still going strong between 2012 and 2019. So there are exceptions, but for the most part, it might be a preschool, a private school. The interesting thing I noticed in Croatia is that they would work it in wherever they could, you know, like the rec center, both the University of Rijeka and the service people at the recreation center were able to offer enrichment classes for gifted. It's not truly a school, so it's a little different there. So much of this depends, you're not asking for a reason, but I'll give you one. I think much of it depends on the leadership of the school, such as in France, where it's generally not going to happen, yet it did because of the leadership that was available for that area in Chambéry. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yes,
so it's not mandated in most countries. Hopefully that will change.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Nice. Thank you. You too.
Thank you, Connie. We have one more question from Tamara. She asks, in your opinion, what is the most efficient program for gifted students, and what are the standards dependent to judge the efficiency of such programs? It's a big question.
Okay, well, I'm a believer in standards. In the United States, I was on the inaugural standards committee for our national organization, and I served a 3-year term. In Kansas, I led the revision process for standards, and I'm now on the World Council Committee for a teacher education paper that we're developing on gifted standards. It's not specifically gifted standards. We'll see how it evolves. So I am a real believer in standards because I think that they give us direction, and they give us an infrastructure, and they give us a way to assess what we're doing. So, you know, if you have standards, you have a means to assess what you're doing, and you can't really know the impact of what you're doing if you're not assessing it. So you know, that's kind of a very global kind of statement that then I'll try to deconstruct a little further. So within standards, I really don't think it matters what the program is. If you are working on a solid foundation of standards and assessments that are evaluating those standards on a regular basis, you're going to know whether what you use is effective or not. And you're going to know the extent that is effective or not. In gifted education, I think that, you know, I can make some generalities. You know, I think we need enrichment. That's kind of the wider approach, you know, giving a wider approach to what students learn. And there's faster, which is acceleration, and there could also be deeper, which is another form of enrichment, maybe an independent study. I think the tried and true, I really do believe. I mean, when I came into the field, my first course with Dr. Joyce Miller at what's now Texas A&M, we learned about Renzulli. And so I am always, you know, just like Benjamin Bloom is sort of like God to a lot of people, you know, Renzulli is sort of like God to me, because he is the innovator of gifted education. And as I go around Europe, I see Renzulli, everyone knows who Renzulli is, you know, so that tells me something. It's not just my opinion, I don't think, of what do I think is most effective. I think you look at what has stood the test of time and even distance, because over these past, I don't know, 30 years or more, at least, I'm trying to think, what I was like 1983, I think, when I took a course with Renzulli teaching, which is pretty close to the time he started writing. So I do think you have to use assessment to know where your students are, and Renzulli would use curriculum compacting. You have to know who your students are. Renzulli has the profiler for that. And this past summer with lockdown, I wasn't able to do my typical practicum courses in summer camps because they were all locked down. They were all canceled. So I created a summer camp. I created a virtual enrichment camp based on the Renzulli learning system, which I learned about from Tazier many years ago. And so we had lots of training. They were very helpful from that. Hey, that's worldwide. It's open to everyone. I think there's so much bang for your buck there, if I can use that phrase. You know, but in the end, I think there are some basic principles that apply. You need to know who your students are. You need to know, what they're interested in, and you need to adapt as much as you can, individualize teaching and learning process as much as you can so that they can grow through their potential. So I didn't really give you a direct answer, like I think this or that. You know, there's lots of shades of curriculum models. They're not all that different from each other when all is said and done. So was that helpful? Let's see, I'm trying to think who asked that question, if I can see the person. So not sure I can see you, but does that help?
She says many thanks.
You're very welcome.
So the next person who asked to speak was Layla. And then we also have one question in the chat, and maybe that will be the last question that we have.
Okay. So Layla is somewhere. Am I supposed to look in a chat?
You have unmute. Layla, unmute and then talk.
So Layla, I see you in the chat, but if you would like to ask a question, you will need to unmute, or you can type your question in the chat. And in the meantime, maybe we can
flip questions and do the
flip
last
questions. One. So the other question was whether that some people think that some researchers argue that every child is gifted given they're provided with proper mentorship and following deliberate practice. What is your take on that topic? Thank you.
I don't agree. I think that children are unique. They're all special. They're all wonderful. They all have strengths. They all have weaknesses. They all have areas to improve. And so those are commonalities. All children have strengths. All children have areas to improve. All children are important. All children deserve to have an education that helps them to learn something every day. However, I think that gifted children, you know, this is where we ran into difficulties in Italy in particular during my trip, where they just couldn't see them. There's the opposite of that as well, where there aren't really, I mean, unless you're Michelangelo or Da Vinci or somebody like that, you know, like a big C kind of creativity gifted, you know, you're just ordinary. And so there's lots of, I'm kind of approaching this backwards, okay? So there's the thought, varies by country in the United States. We don't really want to acknowledge intellectual giftedness always, because we have a little bit of an anti-intellectualism going through the country. And I say a little bit, I'm probably being conservative in that comment. So countries vary, you know, and I believe too, Martina just published her second book, and I was fortunate to write the first chapter in it. And I approached it all the way back from, okay, I'll say Napoleon, all right? Because, you know, things change in countries. Giftedness is defined differently in different countries and different times. So what's gifted, you know, before, during the Age of Enlightenment, it's very different after the Revolution in France, where the École Normale started. And then that started the teacher education movement in Europe, in the United States. My own institution started as a normal school. So, you know, giftedness is, I don't think it's, we can say it's a really stable construct. In the United States, it could be intellectual, it could be performing arts, it can be leadership, it can be a lot of different things. So we have to kind of say, what is giftedness in your opinion, you know, or in your country, or in your school, or what is valued in France, going back there, it was, how are we going to take the third estate and have them be viable citizens, you know, when they don't know how to read, they're not educated, and so on. So there are transitions in countries with what's needed. And I think that's why creativity and innovation and excellence is so important, because that's like a moving target. It's always going to change our societies. Look at where we are now. You know, how fast can we find a vaccine that's going to work, you know? All of a sudden, that's important to us. So I'll go back to your original question now and say, do I think all are gifted? No, I really don't. Defining giftedness as an unusual ability when compared to one's peers sets them with potential advanced abilities. So that's essentially a comparison to begin with. So if you're taking a comparison of the norm and you're looking at children who have advanced potential, then they can't all be gifted, okay? So I hope that that's, you know, it's a little bit of a logic argument maybe, but, you know, statistically, it's not really possible either. So does that help?
Thank you, Connie, so much. Hiba said thank you. She's the person that asked this question. And Leila said that she wished to give you positive feedback on today's lecture.
Thank you.
I'm just mindful of the time. So I think maybe, Taysir, it's time to wrap up.
And thank you for your patience earlier.
Although there is quite a few more questions in the chat room, but we can keep the conversation going.
I would love that. Okay. Good to see everyone. Taysir, Todd, Martina, Eve-Marie, bonjour. You know, so good to see you. I'll catch up with you all later.
Yeah, thank you. So I would like to thank our speaker for today, Connie Phillips, our coordinator, Nana College. And I would like to thank every one of you for saving the time and energy to join this talk. And we promise you to have more talks about different topics relating to excellence, creativity, innovation, and gifted education. So this month we will have 3 lectures more. So it will be announced and we will contact you via email, and you already wrote your emails here. And thank you again, and wishing you a happy weekend.